tradition has to have a beginning. Every dynasty has to start somewhere. Our guest here today is the start of the Hoptown Wrestling tradition. Sir, if you would, introduce yourself.
I'm known as Mike Givens.
And you are a 3-time state champion from Hopkinsville.
Correct. 112 pounds in 1966, 120, 1967, 132, 1966, 68.
Oh, yeah.
Eddie Myers.
You were the first 3-timer for Hopkinsville, right?
I was the first state champion, the second state champion, and then Eddie Wade was the third and the fourth state champions. Mm-hmm. And then myself when I won at 132 after Eddie stepped off the mat.
So you started the you were the godfather, the grandfather, the dawn of building the Hoptown Wrestling tradition, because Hoptown Wrestling in the 60s, like we met with Bill Clarkson, George Turan, Tony Harris, some other guys today that we've met with, that they all come after you. Man, you were the first 3. Livingston now is 3-timer. We've done all of his videos, but you were the first. I mean, you were the guy that got the ball rolling. You put Hoptown on the map.
Well, Hopkinsville is tradition,
mm-hmm.
and we were really lucky that they had a thirst for a better football season.
Right.
And 2 godly coaches entered Hopkinsville, Fleming Thornton and Jacob Hallam from Pickens, South Carolina.
Right.
And they wanted to use the wrestling program to help some of the football players condition off season.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget when Jake Hallam put his arm around me and said, "Mike, you look kind of wiry. We need a 95-pounder and a 103-pounder on the wrestling team. I want you to go to try out." And there's Christian County's Coach Perrin. I can't say enough about Ed Davis for Coach Perrin and
mm-hmm.
and for Fleming Thornton. Great coaches. But Coach Hallam, like I said, he won the state championship in football only 1 year after leaving Hopkinsville, and we almost met him for our second state championship in '67.
Mm-hmm.
The next year, his team won, and then he went to
that was at Ashland, correct?
Yeah, at Ashland, and then he went to Moorhead, and took him 2 years to win the OVC, and they won it the next year without him. So Hoptown won the state championship with him, and 1 year without him, and Ashland won it with him, and on his second year, and 1 year without him. But I was lucky enough to have dinner time stories that the coach at Coel County had beat Hoptown 7-6. Fred Clayton, and my dad told me that he ran a warehouse in Bowling Green and had some Western football players. If they got a phone call by 5 that afternoon, the load was 500 miles from Bowling Green. He had some football players he'd shown how to carry a cast iron bathtub. And I actually dated Debbie Clayton, Coach's daughter, and he said, "Well, I used to work for your dad," and I realized what a small world it was.
Yep.
But he beat Fleming Thornton 7-6, and they won state that year.
My goodness. Yep. And the Hoptown, not just in football but in wrestling, but just about every track base. They're good at just about every sport, and it's gentlemen like you in their own sport that laid that foundation, laid the legacy that now the youngsters have to look up to. They walk in, they see Hoptown has the Hopkinsville High School has like the state cutouts and has what sport they won the years, like state championship, they got the wrestling, some other sports they've got up there. And it's cool that the kids going to school there now can see that and be like, I want my own up on there. I want my own team state placard up on this wall. And it's cool that they do that, and they have guys like you, the history about you and other gentlemen, like I said, with George Turan, Bill Clarkson, Tony Harris, they can look up to. They can say, man, I want to be in the trophy case, in the record books alongside these guys.
Yeah, I was first year out of high school. I watched Billy Clarkson win the 95-pound state wrestling champion. And, of course, Orville Williams had started the program in the state there at Seneca. And I came down and asked Orville Williams, I said, I was sitting in my chair and I was leaning right and I was twisting left as Billy wrestled. How do you sit up there when your heart's down there on the mat? And Coach Orville Williams said, old wrestlers never die, they just squirm away. Kind of stole MacArthur's line.
Yeah, I like that. And the our friend Jack Klein, former head referee in the state, he said, I met him earlier this year doing a video somewhere, and he said that Kentucky wrestling started in 1962, but we didn't have a state tournament until '64.
Well, Jack and I refereed wrestling matches with Jack, both high school and college. And I was at the University of Kentucky when we started the team as a club. Ford started his idea, and I let him wrestle my weight, and I would flip him long ways to let him know I was the man. I'd wrestle up a weight.
Yep.
And Jack was refereeing down at Center at a tournament, and I met the Missouri Valley Conference champion in that weight class. He was normally 180-something pounds. I was normally 132 from high school all the way through college.
Right.
And so he called me. He warned me for stalling. I was winning well. He called me for stalling. He penalized me a point. He penalized me 2 points. And finally, it threw me into overtime. And he was getting ready to penalize. I was winning again. And he was getting ready to penalize, disqualify me. And I almost say, Jack, we only wrestled 2-2-2, 6 minutes in high school. I've had this guy about 11 minutes. I said, you want the last 30 seconds with him? Stall out with him?
Yeah.
Or just try to hold this guy down?
Yep.
And so I tried a Japanese wizard. Didn't work out well. I looked like I had 4 flat tires, but the guy I'd beat before him, the Missouri Valley Conference champion, I beat 11-4. And it's thanks to a inside rubber move that Eddie Wade showed me, who had to go away to school as a young man to learn how to study, to Macaulay at Chattanooga. A lot of kids went to military schools if they were blessed.
Right.
And when I'd won the state at 112, I said, Eddie, he was a neighbor. I said, you got to get down here. And we worked out, and I nearly blacked out. But anyway, wrestling Eddie Wade was like wrestling a wet bar of soap. The harder you squeezed it, the more sure it was to pop out behind you normally. And it looked like these big muscular guys were just tearing him up. And in a matter of minutes, he was behind them, and they could never reach him again.
Yep.
And he showed me a move for this big guy. I mean, like I said, he normal frame 185 was what he was on the roster. And he picked me up when they blew that whistle. And I don't know if it was Jack Klein that blew the whistle or not. But I thought my head was going to go through the rafters of that gymnasium. But Eddie Wade had showed me a move. He said, Mike, they got to set you down. And their head's they can't slam you. They'll be disqualified. Now their head's going to pop out on this side or this side. Now this is what you do. Now it'd been 4 years since Eddie had showed me that move. Never had used it, but it was like time stood still, and his head popped out on one side, and I did what he did, and I stood him on his head almost the entire first 2 minutes and drained the blood out of him. So beat him 11-4, and then met Allen. The next match he'd already beaten him once, 14-0. But I ended up losing to Allen. That coaches at DeSales. His last name slips my mind. And good boy. But I went to several of the tournaments and saw Allen coaching 2 boys that lived down the street from me.
Right.
Just encourage them.
Well, that's
But Jack Klein, I knew.
Yeah.
This
Oh,
where
yeah.
it all
No.
started.
And that's phenomenal stories, and I guess the Hopkins-Hopkinsville wrestling tradition, says thank you to being their first state champion and being the first three-timer and just laying the foundation because, you know, like I said, 3 team state titles, numerous individuals, some names that are just legendary. Livingston Merritt, Miguel Merritt, Willie Ennels, all the Gartha Herring, gentlemen like yourself, George, Bill Clarkson. Just, I mean, Hopkinsville, man, has a tradition, and thank you for being here, man.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. Now, unfortunately, we don't have any video of the 67, 68, 66, 67, or 68 state finals. So if you know where those videos are, we know the 1969 videos exist because I got a copy of it. So we have to believe that somewhere 66, 67, or 68 exist. If you have those, please reach out to me. I would love to be able to come back and just let you watch your tapes, you know, all these years later, and let the world see just how good you were and just, you know, how wrestling was back in the 60s. But that's all we got from the late 60s, man. Thank you for being here today.
It wasn't about the medals or anything. It was, you know, it's about the tradition and the honor of Hopkinsville High School and the respect for the coaches.
Right.
And just doing the work.
Oh, yeah. No,
And,
I get it.
My last match, Eddie Myers, blind school. My understanding, he had never been beat, and he'd beat the New York, Illinois, and Indiana champions at the Northeast Blind School Association tournament in Boston, Massachusetts. And Coach Thornton, before he died, we kind of had our homecoming. He said, Mike, his coach, said he was going to use you like a mop to clean the mat for the next match. And I pulled out my wallet and I laid down $1. That was a lot of money in 1968. Then I laid down another $1 for Eddie Wade to repeat at 127 pounds. And I tied Eddie Myers in the last 5 seconds to go into overtime. And then in the overtime late, and I held him down pretty well. And a few seconds left, he escaped from me and scored. And so when they blew the whistle, he was out of gas. I had him for a takedown. I threw him out of bounds. The most outstanding wrestler was a boy from North Hardin, 145 pounds, Ed Brandon. And they wrote him up as, I like to rub their face in the mat, twist their arms and their legs, and make them feel pain. And when they raised my hand, it was the judge's decision. Coach Thornton lifted me up, and he said, Mike, you're my most outstanding wrestler. You never done anything flashy. You always did exactly what it took to win. And then he set me down, and you know, I had to try to either go to Vietnam or go to college, and I was pretty limited in my reading skills, so I couldn't take any scholarships, and basically had to spend most of my time reading and writing and physics and to be an engineer. And but I spent a lot of time coming and working out with Kent Parent, and a lot of the coaches thought he was my twin brother, and I said he is good looking. But and then you know, coaching the boys through, and then when we started UK's team, I worked at Woodford County, worked out with Jeff Fitch. He was a 4-time state champion, heavier than myself, and the coach liked me coming over to work out with him because I more than pushed him. There was nobody to push him. And he was such a fine gentleman, scholar, and athlete. And that was the tradition we had at Hopkinsville and also at Ed Addicks, which was torn apart, you know, by integration at that time. Spent a lot of time on the track, you know, eating a lot of cinder dust. But you know, it was about tradition. It wasn't about the medals. My middle daughter has all my medals and stuff, and you know, that's okay.
No, I get it, and I think that's a really good place to end the video. Again, Mike, thank you for being here today. Really greatly appreciate it. Again, if you know where the 1966, 1967, 1968 videos are, please reach out to me. We'll make sure that whether or not you want to do a review, you'll get the copies. That way your family can watch. And like I've said in every video today, George King from Union County has my favorite line. Maybe not now, but at one time Dad could do it. Granddad could do it. And, you know, that's your family deserves to be able to see your time on the mat, and the Hopkinsville crew deserve, you know, to be able to see what you've done to get their program put on the state map. And man, we'll see you guys on the mats. Thank you to everybody today here at Hopkinsville, Christian County, that was able to show up. Greatly appreciate it. And it was a great day of filming. Can't wait to get back down here again and meet with some other guys. But that's all we got.
Yeah. It's just, you know, last night was the big rivalry game, Hopkinsville and Christian County in football.
Right.
And, of course, to me, that was been a great pleasure. We didn't get to wrestle Christian County back then. But my sweetheart was a cheerleader at Christian County.
Uh-oh.
And she could not come to any Hopkinsville sporting events because it was taboo.
Yep.
And so going back to the last match for Kentucky down at Center College against my frame at 132 pounds and a guy 185 pounds, that was the one and only wrestling match she came to. So you might say a good-looking Christian County cheerleader in the stands for you pulled that one out of the hat, because I sure thought my head was going to hit the rafters. And thanks to Eddie Wade showing me a move. And I mentored Kent Parent quite a bit.
Right.
Several guys that how to win the match in your mind before you went out there.
Oh, yeah. Got to have that. Got to have your head screwed on straight. All right. That's all we got. We'll see you guys on the mats. Thank you guys for watching. We got a lot more videos coming from different schools. We'll see you guys there.